in tonight's presentation, we will just go over a little bit about how vaccinations work. We have a short video that explains the importance of vaccinations. We will also just briefly go over how they were developed and why they were developed so quickly, because there have been a lot of concerns and questions in the public about how quickly the COVID-19 vaccine has been rolled out. Then we will just discuss a little bit about our target groups for receiving COVID vaccine on St. Martin, discuss a little bit about the side effects of what we know for the vaccinations, and why you who shouldn't get the vaccine, and lastly, leading towards you as community leaders and well-respected leaders in your community, what we would like for you to take home as messages for your congregation and or community. And then in the second part of our presentation, we will just briefly discuss about the COVID situation for the vaccines on St. Martin, what it looks like, where the locations are, who would we be rolling out the vaccine to first, and then end it again with a question and answer session. So just a brief information is that vaccines have been around for a very long time. And so from a public health perspective, vaccinations actually contribute to saving lives. So it's helped over the many years to reduce mortality and morbidity. And if you remember, as little children, you probably got vaccinated against a numerous diseases such as maybe measles, mumps, rubella, polio. There's a lot of diseases that we've been protected from because of the advent of vaccinations. So the first video we wanted to show was one that was developed by White and Yellow Cross, which is essentially giving you an overview on how vaccinations work. I think the video is maybe 2 minutes, give or take. But essentially, we want to share this with you so you get a sense of how your body reacts when you do encounter a virus, and then how vaccines work to counter that. So I think
here's some basic information about vaccines.
When you encounter a virus, if your body recognizes the virus, it will trigger a natural defense reaction. Your body will then start to produce antibodies designed to fight off that virus in the future. Your body remembers. However, if the next encounter with a virus is a new one, your body doesn't have any antibodies yet, and you can get sick. Vaccines. A vaccine is a harmless, inactive part of a virus, or a copy. This way, your body can start producing antibodies without getting sick. So the next time you encounter the same virus, your body remembers it and will defend itself.
For example, in phase 1, you look at how a small amount of participants react to the vaccine. Phase 2, you end up expanding your pool of participants to see what the reactions are over the course of the time, up until you receive FDA approval and review. And then phase 4 is after the drug or the vaccine has been approved, then it goes on to the general public. So essentially, this process is always maintained when new drugs or new vaccines come to the market. COVID-19 is no exception. The only difference, which I think we will get to in the next slide, is how fast the vaccine was developed based on the typical clinical trial process, which is a lengthy process, could sometimes be 5 to 10 years before a vaccine gets rolled out. But because of the international support that COVID-19 has received, the clinical trial process went very quickly with COVID-19. So I think this is another video that was developed by White and Yellow Cross just to explain how they are developed. And then we can go on to the particulars about COVID-19.
So, in the last video, we explained what is a vaccine and how it works. But do you know how it's developed? Every vaccine is developed following the same steps and stages. Pharmaceutical stage. When the genetic code for the virus becomes available, scientists can start to develop a vaccine. Preclinical stage. In this stage, the vaccine is tested in a lab on human tissue, and if that works, on animals to see if the response is the same. Clinical stage. Phase 1. The vaccine is given to a handful of volunteers. In Phase 2, it's given to hundreds of volunteers in different doses. In the last phase, the best performing dose will be given to thousands of volunteers. License stage. This stage looks at the previous results to determine if it is safe for the general population. Serious side effects are not accepted and steps cannot be skipped. The requirements for a vaccine to be approved are very strict and the same for all vaccines. When approved, a vaccine is therefore considered just as safe as all other vaccines. If approved, the vaccine can be produced and distributed. However, the safety is always monitored, even when the vaccine is already on the market. In the last videos, we learned how a vaccine works and how it's developed. Normally that takes 10 to 15 years. Then, how is it possible that COVID-19 vaccine was developed within 1 year? Existing knowledge. The COVID-19 virus is quite similar to the SARS virus in 2003. So research has already been done that could be used for this vaccine. This saves years of research. China shared the genetic code of the COVID-19 virus in January of 2020 with the world. Since then, scientists all over the world have started their research. Direct immune response. The immune system of the human body responds very quickly to the COVID-19 vaccine. This makes it easy to test. HIV, for example, doesn't have a response like this, which makes it difficult to develop a vaccine. Overlap. Because of the global need for a vaccine, different stages of the development process were done at the same time. For example, stages 2 and 3 of volunteer testing. They were done simultaneously. Even though the stages overlapped, no stage was skipped. Money, money, money. Normally, it takes a long time to get the necessary finances to develop a vaccine. But since the global need is now so large, money was made available from all over the world right away. Volunteers. Normally, it can take years to recruit all the volunteers needed for the clinical stage. However, since this virus had such a big impact on all our lives, finding volunteers was no problem at all. Requirements are the same. Even with this enormous need for a vaccine, the demands for approval are always the same and no steps in the development process have been skipped. This vaccine can therefore be considered just as safe as any other approved vaccine.
In order to combat the COVID-19 virus right here on St. Martin, we are introducing a vaccine that will save lives, and that is the reason I will be taking the vaccine.
The COVID-19 vaccine teaches your immune system how to deal with the COVID-19 virus. It protects you by creating antibodies which are activated to fight the virus.
The COVID-19 vaccine protects you from the severe side effects when contracting COVID-19 virus, which in severe cases can lead to death.
Once you have the vaccine, your immune system recognizes the virus and attacks it, making your body better able to fight it off. To put it simply, the vaccine is the training for your immune system.
So vaccination is necessary to boost your immune system, to lower the infectiousness and spreading in the community, and to make you less prone to serious disease and complications.
These vaccines do not typically cause long-term side effects because once the material is introduced into your body completely eliminates it within a short amount of time. The only thing that remains is your immune system remembering what it is, what it looks like, and how to fight it. The vaccines will not and cannot alter your DNA.
Listen, it's okay to be concerned at how fast the vaccine was developed. Fortunately, researchers have been studying and working with this type of vaccine, called the mRNA vaccine, for more than 10 years to battle infectious diseases. So, the basis for the research already existed.
For the COVID-19 vaccine, processes that usually happen one after the other, such as securing funding, testing, approval, and distribution, all happened at the same time, speeding up the process while not skipping any steps, processes, or phases. Because of the magnitude and impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also easier to secure funding and find willing participants for the vaccine trials.
All of this made it possible to safely develop a vaccine, a process that typically takes 5 to 10 years, in less than a year without skipping any of the necessary steps. The vaccine also received emergency approval from drug safety bodies such as the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, the European Medicines Agency, and the World Health Organization.
If you suffer from severe allergic reactions, you should consult your family doctor prior to taking the corona vaccine. All medications and also all vaccines that we had in the past have the potential to cause an allergic reaction or cause any type of side effects. In general, those side effects and allergic reactions are very mild.
Persons under the age of 16, as well as pregnant and breastfeeding women, were not part of the vaccine trials. So there's no data available as yet on how they will respond to the vaccine. While it is assumed to be safe, at this moment, it is not recommended for these groups to be vaccinated.
The elderly are at a higher risk for contracting severe COVID-19 and are strongly recommended to take the vaccine. You should do it for your parents and grandparents, as I will do it for my clients.
Vaccination is necessary to boost our immune system, prevent serious disease and complications, and lower the infectiousness and spreading in the community. The COVID-19 vaccine is not mandatory, but taking the vaccine protects you and your loved ones.
The vaccine is free for all residents of St. Martin, whether you are documented or undocumented. So to protect yourself and your family, I encourage you, take the vaccine.
So to answer your question, there are multiple vaccine options, which have been rolled out globally. So you may have heard of Pfizer, which you mentioned, Moderna, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and then one that was released in Russia, the Sputnik vaccine. And so what we know right now is that for the Dutch Caribbean, Pfizer will be one of the vaccines that will be rolled out, hopefully starting in the next few weeks. For the Pfizer, I think what's important to note is, as Dr. Ragozing mentioned, it is an RNA vaccine, and it requires 2 doses, minimum 3 weeks apart. So what's important for us is to make sure that we not only reach a large number of persons, but that also these persons follow up to receive their booster so that they are fully protected against COVID-19. Sorry, one more thing. When we look at how effective it is, because that's another question that comes up quite a bit. When studies were published, the Pfizer vaccine was shown to be 95% effective, which means that if you had, 1,000 persons or 100 persons, 95 of those persons would be protected and when exposed to COVID-19, not have developed severe infection or any infection. Next slide. So this slide is just to show that the vaccine, as the video mentioned, has been tested in multiple persons and millions of persons over the world. And millions, like Dr. Ragozing said, have already taken the vaccine with little to no major side effects. But essentially, when we look at the safety of Pfizer, in the test group with clinical trials of about 44,000 persons, 1 in 500,000 persons experience serious side effects. So when you look at the full comprehensive picture, there are persons that have side effects, but not that many and not that serious of a side effect. And as I mentioned, with the Pfizer vaccine, it is important that each person gets that second dose to make sure that they are fully protected against COVID-19. In terms of side effects, so I think it's important to mention that with any vaccine, there is a risk for side effects. And this would be something when we are administering any vaccine that we are careful and that we monitor after the person receives a vaccine. Whether you're a child, whether it's your child or your grandchild, we always make sure that we monitor and ask parents if they develop any side effects. I think the story is the same for COVID-19. So part of our responsibility with immunizing persons against COVID-19 is that we make sure to monitor any side effect, whether it's small or more severe. So with any vaccine, there will be some sort of side effect, which is very normal. You could experience mild pain where the injection was given. You could develop a headache. You could develop tiredness, muscle or joint pains, and fever. I think this is not extraordinary to COVID. This could be applied to any vaccine across the board. Usually these side effects are short and would only last for a couple of days. In terms of long-term side effects, what we do know based on publications and research that have been publicly available is that it is unlikely that there will be long-term side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine. And again, the vaccine induces a natural immune reaction, which Dr. Ragozing mentioned. And so essentially the ingredients of that vaccine will be broken down in a few days into your body. Some things that we wanted to highlight is the vaccine is given in your upper arm. And there have been concerns and questions around the type of vaccine. So for the Pfizer vaccine, which we are slated to receive, it is an mRNA vaccine. However, there is no indication, there's no science behind the fact that it can change your genetic makeup or your DNA. So this is something that has been circulating in the public for quite some time. This is not the case. The vaccine will not alter who you are and your genetic makeup. What we do also want to convey to the public is that this vaccine is free. So there's no consequence if you are a legal resident of St. Martin or not. We are making it eligible to everyone in the community that reside on the Dutch side. And again, the vaccine is not mandatory, but from a public health perspective, we encourage persons to get the vaccine, especially if they are of the older demographic, so you're age 60 plus. If you have certain underlying medical conditions, we advise that you get it, just to protect your family and the circle around you. So we do encourage that, if you have colleagues, if you have friends, if you have family that have questions and concerns about the vaccine, that you provide them with information that you received today, just so they feel a bit more enlightened and aware of what's happening on St. Martin for vaccines. So who should not get vaccinated at this point? So there are some groups that are advised to not take the vaccine as yet, and those are children under the age of 18 and pregnant and breastfeeding women. And again, if you have a doctor, we would like for you to have conversations with your doctor if you have a weakened immune system because of any underlying medical conditions that you have, if you take blood thinners, or if you have a condition where your blood doesn't clot very well. This is important for you to have this type of conversation with your doctor. And if you've had any serious allergic reactions to any vaccine in the past. Okay. So I think there's a graph next to that. I don't know, I didn't click through it. But essentially, what we want to convey as well is this concept of herd immunity. So what herd immunity means, and it goes along with why vaccines are important. But essentially, you want to, the more persons we vaccinate in the community, for those persons who are not vaccinated, because a majority of the population are vaccinated, chances are those persons will be protected. Because if everyone around them is protected, it creates that bubble where if we strive for 70% herd immunity, if we can get 70% of St. Martin's population to be vaccinated, then those persons, or the 30% who choose not to get vaccinated, would still be protected from contracting COVID because of the effect of persons around them being protected. The same could be true for other vaccines, such as chickenpox, for example. If you are protected against chickenpox and you have one susceptible person, chances are the disease won't spread because everyone around them is protected. So a similar concept applies to COVID-19. And so for us, what we would like to, what we would like to convey is that we need to encourage persons getting vaccines, and we need to encourage herd immunity because there will be people who can't receive the vaccine. So for example, the pregnant women, persons who have severe immunocompromised conditions, which make them ineligible to receive the vaccine. And so by us protecting ourselves, we are also protecting them. And then when we look outside of the bubble of St. Martin, herd immunity is also important from an economic perspective because the healthier and protected our population are, that has direct consequences and direct effect for tourism. So if we show that we have our numbers low, we have our population vaccinated, we are taking our measures seriously, then it makes us more attracted and more attractive to travelers or prospective travelers that want to come to St. Martin because we are taking these measures as priority. So I think from not only a health lens, but also an economic lens, there is some importance for us to make sure that we have our vaccination rates as high as possible. Okay. So your role as community leaders and what we would like to maybe have a quick conversation on, of course, we know you probably have questions and concerns, but we essentially are depending on you and relying on you to be the eyes and ears and mouths in the community. We want to stop the spread of misinformation because a lot of fake news or misleading information is circulated in mass media. So we would like for you to, be able to go back to your communities to say, this is what I've learned, here are some resources, so that misinformation isn't continually spread in the community. We also want to provide you with accurate information. We want to encourage you and your colleagues and your community to also, know what the resources are to go to There are a lot of resources on the Government of St. Martin website. There's also the World Health Organization. There are other public health entities in the Caribbean, other islands, other countries have public health websites that have great information. And we would like for you to lead by example and engage in that conversation with your community if there are still questions and concerns about the vaccine. So I guess a question maybe to start discussion. I don't know if anyone has any questions about what information was presented, and then maybe just to turn the question to you to see what your role can be in your community in ensuring that persons are educated, feel informed about COVID-19 vaccine, and maybe even for me, what government can do to make sure that we are communicating material effectively within your community.